Hello everyone, welcome to the Distinguished Visiting Professors Series 2023. I'm Professor Bruce McFarlane, Dean of the Faculty of Education and Human Development at the Education University of Hong Kong. In this lecture we are honoured to have Professor Tanja Mitrovic deliver her lecture entitled The Effect of Nudges on Video-Based Training for Soft Skills. Tanja Mitrovic is a professor in the Department of Computer Science and Software Engineering at the University of Canterbury in New Zealand. She is the leader of the Intelligent Computer Tutoring Group there and an associate editor of 3 international journals in her field. She is a fellow of the Asia Pacific Society for Computers in Education, distinguished member of the Association of Computer Machinery, and a senior member of the Association for the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence and the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. Dr. Mitrovic's primary research interests are in student modelling. Her research group at Canterbury has developed a number of constraint-based intelligent tutoring systems in a variety of domains, which have been thoroughly evaluated in real classrooms and proven to be highly effective. Her recent research focuses on AI-based support for active learning from videos. In this lecture, Professor Mitrovic will demonstrate that videos are a powerful way to learn soft skills, such as communicating, negotiating, and collaborating, where context and the ability to see different perspectives is crucial. Her team has developed an active video watching platform called AVW-Space. This aids engagement with video content by providing means for constructive learning. Professor Mitrovic will discuss the features of ABW-Space and explain the implications for presentation skills and communication in face-to-face meetings. The initial studies with AVW-Space on presentation skills showed that only students who commented on videos and who rated comments written by their peers have improved their understanding of the target soft skill. In order to foster deeper engagement, adaptive nudges which encourage students to write higher quality comments were designed. The findings from the studies show the effectiveness of nudges. As such, I am sure you'll find her lecture thought-provoking and highly relevant to the contemporary challenges of teaching online.
Hello everyone. It's my great pleasure to share some of my recent research with you. So let me start by sharing my screen, and I'll start the presentation. Okay, so I will be talking today about the effect of nudges on video-based training for soft skills. So first of all, why are we talking about soft skills? It is widely known that soft skills are crucial for success in any aspect of our lives. And on the other hand, video-based training, video-based learning is becoming more and more popular. So in this particular talk, I will talk about how we use nudges, the theory of nudges, to engage our students more while learning from videos. This is teamwork. So I have started this project in collaboration with Tanja Dimitrova in 2015. Tanja is from the University of Leeds in the UK. And since then, several of my colleagues and my students have also worked on the project. So video-based learning is widely used, and even more so in the last few years during the pandemic. It is very useful because it is easy to learn new things. It's used for a variety of formal and informal learning situations. However, there is one big problem. And that is that it's easy to just be very passive and watch the videos without engaging with the material. There are several reasons for low engagement. First of all, there is lack of feedback. So people are just watching videos. There is no feedback. There is no interaction with teachers or interaction with other students. And there have been attempts to deal with this issue. There are several strategies for using videos for education. For example, a teacher can assign the video to the class and then later on have a classroom discussion around the material that was presented. There are also attempts to add interactive activities, questions, quizzes, and so on into videos directly. However, all of these attempts require additional effort from the teachers. In our approach, we wanted to minimize the effort that's required from the teachers, and we use interactive note-taking, and also we use AI-based personalized support. So in my talk today, I'm going to present our platform. And as I said, we are focusing on soft skills. Now, the platform itself is not specific to soft skills. It can be used for any kind of video-based learning. However, we were interested in soft skills because there is very little available for teaching soft skills. Both Tanja and I come from computer science departments, and we have noticed that our students have a lot of difficulty with presentations. So we started with a space for presentation skills. And I have here 2 screenshots. On the left, you see what we call our personal space. So this is for students to watch videos on their own. They can play the video, they can stop the video to add a comment, and to add a comment, they also have to select one of these options, which we called aspects. So the aspects are written so to focus the students' attention on their past experience. And this is very important because in order to learn soft skills, the learner has to contextualize learning in their own past experience and to reflect on it and plan for the future. So our aspects are, I'm rather good at this, so the student can select this option to say that they are already familiar with a particular skill, or I did so in the past, or I didn't realize I wasn't doing this. So basically this one tells us that the student has learned something new from the video. And we have, I like this point as well. So when the student adds a comment, it will be saved and shown in this list on the right side of the video. So that's what happens in the personal space. The screenshot on the right shows our social space. In the social space, students can still see the video, but they can see all the comments written by the class. These comments are shown anonymously. The student can see the text of the comment and the aspect that was selected. So the students can rate the comments, and you can see the rating categories. This is useful for me. I hadn't thought of this. I didn't notice this. So these 3 rating categories tell us that someone has learned from comments written by their peers. So this is the element of social learning. There is also a rating category, I don't agree with this, which basically allows someone to disagree with whatever is said in the comment. And also I like this point. So this is the basic version of the AVW Space platform. AVW stands for Active Video Watching. And in this talk, I'm going to present some findings from this presentation skills space, but I'm also going to mention another space in which we have done some studies, and that's face-to-face communication in software development meetings. Now back to the presentation skills space. What happens in this space is we have 4 tutorial videos and 4 example videos. All these videos are publicly available videos from YouTube. So the teacher needs to select those videos and then also specify the aspects that students use to write comments and the rating categories for ratings. In this particular space, we have performed 12 studies over the years. The first one was in 2016, and the last one was last year in 2022. And over 2,000 students participated in those studies. 2 other studies were with postgraduate students, and 6 of them were in Engineering 101. Engineering 101 is a first-year course at the University of Canterbury. And this course is mandatory for all engineering students. It is a semester-long course, in which students learn a variety of engineering skills. And one of the things they do in the course is they work on a project for the whole semester, and that this is group work, so they work with other students. And in the very last week of this course, they are asked to present. However, because the course is full, there is no time to teach them how to give presentations. So what happens is that we inform them that there is this free online resource that they can use if they want to learn more about presentation skills. So it's voluntary use of ABW-Space in this particular course. We have developed an ontology of presentation skills that we use in this particular space. And this is the experimental design that we have used in the studies, in most of the studies with presentation skills. At the very start, we have a survey in which we collect some demographic data, and we also ask students 3 questions. These are questions meant to assess their conceptual understanding of presentation skills. So we ask them to write about the visual aids, about the structure, and about speech and delivery in relation to presentations. For each of the questions, they have 1 minute, so they can ask whatever they want, but the questions are timed. So this is our proxy for measuring their conceptual knowledge. After that, they can watch the videos, and the instructions that are given to them say that to watch the tutorial videos first, to learn from the tutorial videos and write comments as they go. And also after that, to watch the example videos. Now for the example videos, we tell them to critique them because these are real presentations. We ask them to critique the presentations by using what they have learned from the tutorial videos. After that, we have in some studies used survey 2, which again has the conceptual knowledge questions, and we ask them about usability and cognitive load while commenting. In phase 2, that is when we use the social space, we open comments for browsing and rating. And after that phase, we have the final survey in which we have the same conceptual knowledge questions and again, questions about usability and cognitive load. Now, as I mentioned, we have had several versions of ABW-Space. And in this talk, I'm going to mention some of them, not all of them. And I'm not going to talk about all the studies. But initially, we started with the basic version that I just explained. And later on, we added different types of nudges and visualizations. So let me tell you a little bit about the findings from the early studies. So the early studies with just commenting and rating. We have found that writing comments and rating comments written by others led to increased conceptual knowledge. So both types of activities are necessary for learning, not just one of them. We have also found that microscaffolds, meaning aspects and rating categories, have positive effect on learning. In the initial study, aspects were optional, but we have then later seen that when students use aspects, they do learn more. So in the later studies, the use of aspects was made mandatory. And also students reported that writing comments is demanding. They were not sure where to look, what to write, and that kind of stuff. Now, we have clustered users from the initial studies and looked at what characterizes different clusters. So I'm going to talk about 2 clusters today. The first one is what we call habitual video watchers. Now, in this network structure, the nodes marked with circles are students, and the nodes marked with pluses are the domain words from the domain vocabulary. So you can see that the particular student has used a number of words, and there are some shared words used by more than one person. Now, what is interesting about this cluster is that they are relatively passive. So they did write some comments, but not many of them. And if you look at how many words are shared, there is not much overlap. really saying that they don't have enough conceptual knowledge about presentation skills. As a contrast, we can look at this other cluster, which we call self-regulated learners. And you see, first of all, that there are many, many more connections. They're using more words as well. So these students have a bigger vocabulary and they use it appropriately. So that made us think about how we can further enhance the platform to support engagement. We have seen that some students are passive, they don't write comments, some students write very few comments, and then we have the ideal behavior when they write a lot of comments using a lot of domain vocabulary. So while thinking about how we can help engagement, we decided to use nudges. So I'll say just a few words about the nudge theory. The nudge theory was developed by Richard Taylor and Cass Sunstein. Both of them are professors from the University of Chicago. Richard Taylor is an economist and Cass is a professor of law. So this particular book called Nudge, it's a great read. I recommend it to everyone. It talks about how our environments can be changed in a subtle way, so to lead the people to make better decisions. So this particular approach is known as the libertarian paternalism. So we are not restricting liberty to choose. People still have freedom to choose, but the nudges are designed so to move people towards making good decisions. And an example from the book, for example, is the design of cafeterias, where if you put healthy food such as fruit and nuts at the eyesight level, so that people can easier see them, they are more likely to purchase healthy food. So this is the kind of thinking that we involved with, and we were designing the choice architecture, so designing nudges that we wanted to add to AVW-Space in order to increase engagement and make students write more comments. The first attempt at this was to develop a set of reminder nudges. So these are simple nudges that are given to students in cases when they are passive, they don't write comments, or if they keep writing comments which are always using the same aspect. So for example, the first nudge, not comment reminder, would be given to students if they have watched approximately 1/3 of the video and haven't written any comments. Or the no comment reference point nudge is given when the student has watched most of the video, and even after receiving the no comment reminder nudge, they have not written comments. The aspect underutilized nudge is given to students who write comments using maybe just one or two aspects. We have noticed in early studies that students often write comments using the I like this aspect, and they don't provide a lot of insight in their thinking in the comments. So this is a screenshot showing a nudge. So as before, we have the video on the left. Then we have the nudge, which is shown next to the video. And in this particular case, the student has written 2 comments previously using the I like this point aspect. The comments are relatively simple. So the nudge says, are there any techniques in this tutorial video that are new to you? Can you write a comment and share your thoughts using the I didn't realize I wasn't doing this aspect? So we are kind of nudging them to use this particular aspect. There are also other types of nudges added to the environment, like, for example, this comment line, the line below the video showing the comments using this particular aspect. I didn't realize I wasn't doing this. So each of the dots represent one comment written using this particular aspect. So we are coding the comments. And on mouse over, the student can see the text of a particular comment. So for example, that the middle of a presentation is forgotten compared to the start and end. Nudges are shown at appropriate times, so they depend on the student's behavior during watching a video, and they stay on the screen for a few seconds and then they disappear. So then we conducted a few studies using these reminder nudges, and we had a number of hypotheses that you can see. So what we have found is that our first hypothesis that nudges would result in more comments was confirmed in studies with undergraduate students, but not with studies with postgraduate students. And the reason for this is that postgraduate students were already writing more comments in comparison to undergraduate students. So this particular set of nudges didn't really help them much. The second hypothesis was that nudges would result in more learning, and this was true for postgrads, not for undergrads. And the third hypothesis was that nudges would result in a more even use of various aspects, so that students would be using a variety of aspects. And this was confirmed with both postgraduate and undergraduate studies. Hypothesis 4 was that nudges would foster active constructive behavior, or in other words, if we phrase it in the other way, nudges would mean that there are fewer passive students. And this was the case with undergrads, not with postgrads, because most of the postgrads were already actively writing comments. Now, hypothesis 5, that nudges would have a positive effect on comments and learning, didn't work for postgrads, but it worked with undergrads. And we also found that students who had received nudges, the undergraduate students who have received nudges, had a better subjective opinion of learning in the AVW space. So after these initial results, we wanted to develop additional nudges that will work on the level of a particular comment. So we wanted to separate comments by their category. As a first step towards that, we developed a quality scheme for comments written on tutorial videos. And we have divided them into 5 categories. Category 1 is the lowest category, and 5 is the highest category. In the first category, we have comments which are simply very short, such as very helpful, without providing additional information about what the student is thinking. Comments that are negative, or comments that are off topic. So these comments are not terribly useful for learning. In category 2, what happens here is that we have comments which repeat the content of the video. So for example, the speaker in the video said, "Be passionate," and that's what the student wrote. Category 3, these are higher category comments which are critical and analytical. So students might write about something that appeared in the video, but they would provide additional elaboration or justification. For example, presentations can be boring and long, whereas stories can have a clear direction if formulated properly. In category 4, we have self-reflective comments where students reflect on their own experience. For example, "My past speeches have had very interesting beginnings." Or category 5, self-regulating. "I will definitely be trying to smile more throughout my next presentation." So this shows planning for the future presentations. So basically we treat category 1 as low quality, category 2 as middle quality, and then categories 3, 4, and 5 as high quality comments. And this is the type of comments we would like to see our students write. Now, for example videos, as I mentioned, the instructions that are given to students are to critique those presentations by using what they have learned in the tutorial videos. So the comments are of different nature, and it's not possible to use the same quality scheme for comments written on example videos. So here we have only 3 levels. The lowest quality 1, which are very short, negative or off-topic comments like strong ending. Level 2, paraphrasing or repeating, and on a question. And then 3, the highest quality, which are critical and analytical, like should give more meaning to the statistic by placing it in context. Now, what we have done is we labeled a lot of comments collected from the early studies. We performed feature extraction by looking at linguistic and psychological features, also domain-specific ratio, which is the number of words from the domain vocabulary divided by the total length of the comment. And we also took into account what aspect the student used when writing the comment. So these features were then used to train a machine learning classifier, and we used the random forest classifier to produce the quality of a particular comment. So that allows us basically to, as soon as the student writes a comment, to show the quality, to estimate the quality of that comment. And that was then used to define quality nudges. So these are additional nudges that depend on the quality of what the student has written. So if the student has written a very short comment, they will get the elaborate more nudge, which will ask them to write more about a particular topic, or another nudge, which asks them to think more critically. There are also nudges that provide positive feedback, like good critical comment. And this is given the first time when the student writes a high quality comment on something, or when they write a first reflective comment on tutorial videos, or first or frequent high quality comment on example videos. So let me show you at this point a very short demo, live demo of AVW-Space. So now I'm logged in to AVW-Space using my account, which is not a student account. You can see that we have a number of spaces, and I'm going to go into the presentation scale space that we used in Engineering 101 last year. So as I said, we have added first the reminder nudges, and then after that we added the quality nudges, and we have also added a number of visualizations. The first of which is this dashboard that you can see at the top of the page. So this is just a progress bar, really. We are telling them which phases of the training they have completed. So this particular user completed survey 1, watched 7 videos, commented on 7 videos, then in the rating phase, commented on 2 videos and completed the final study. This dashboard has made a huge impact on learning, and we have received feedback from students who said, oh, I want to make everything green. I want to complete this training. We have also added indicators which show whether the student has interacted with a particular video. So there are 4 tutorial videos, and after that we have 4 example videos. In the second phase of the study, they will just see the watch and comment links. The review comment links are not available. These are the links for the social space. So let's see if I, for example, go into tutorial 4, which I have watched previously, but I want to watch it again. What happens is that the video would load. We see these visualizations, and we see a nudge. So let me talk about the nudge first before it disappears. You can see that I have previously written a comment, which is a very low quality comment. And it's shown in red, which means quality 1, the lowest possible quality. And the nudge says, try to elaborate more. For example, now it disappeared, but we can retrieve it from here. Try to elaborate more on the video in your next comment. And it's then giving us an example comment written by someone else from the class who said, it is good to vary the way you speak. This engages and makes the presentation more interesting to listen to. So we are giving them a social reference point. So someone else has written this comment, which is a good quality comment. There are also visualizations that show other comments written for this video. And the colors, as I said earlier, represent the aspect that was used. Now, the lower line shows the comments I have written. So I have only written one comment, so that's that comment here. So these additional visualizations also help students see what they have done before. Now, if we go back and go into the reviewing phase, if we go for the same video, for example, which I have not used before, the circle is empty. We are going to see the same video and we are going to see the comments written by the class. And I can read the comment and then I can rate it. So, for example, if I like this comment, I can say that. Right, so that was a very short demo of the platform, the current version of the platform. And let me tell you more about what we have found about the effect of nudges. So these are the visualizations you have seen. Now, in order to analyze the data, what we use is the ICAP framework. ICAP framework was developed by Mickey Chi and Ruth Wiley. And what they have done, they're educational psychologists. What they have done is they analyzed a very large number of educational studies, different educational settings. It could be one-to-one human to tutor, all the way to massive open online courses. And they have looked at overt behaviors. We don't know what's happening in the student's head, obviously, but the behaviors that we can see do reveal something about the level of students' engagement. And in this ICAP framework, they define 4 different learning modes: passive, active, constructive, and interactive. And therefore, that's the name of the framework as well. So the passive mode is characterized as receiving information. An example would be if you have a student in a lecture, the lecturer is talking and the student is not doing anything, just listening, right? There is no overt behavior that can be recorded for that student. In the same lecture, we might have another student who is listening, but also writing notes. And this is the manipulating mode. So the student is writing notes, but these notes are basically just capturing what the lecturer is saying. The difference between active and the higher mode, the constructive mode, would be that we have another student who is also writing notes, but not just verbatim what the lecturer said. In addition to that, the student is making additional elaborations, highlighting important bits, making notes about why a particular piece of information is important for them, drawing concept maps, or anything else. So anything that adds additional content to what the lecturer is saying. So basically, the student is, in a way, self-explaining what the lecturer is saying to themselves. And the highest mode is the interactive mode. And this involves situations when the student is talking to the tutor, the lecturer, or maybe other students. So there is dialogue between people. Now, when analyzing lots of studies, they have found that the highest amount of learning happens in the interactive mode. Constructive mode results in less learning, while active is, again, less than constructive, and the lowest amount of learning happens when someone is passive. So how we use the framework is we classify students post hoc after the study into one of these 4 modes. Actually, in our system, we don't have the interactive mode, so we use just passive, active, and constructive. So we divide them into these categories, and then we analyze the results on this basis. So I'm going to give you first the summary for Engineering 101, because we have done quite a few studies in this course. So in this table, in the last row, we have the very first study in the course done in 2017. This was with the basic version of ABW-Space, before we had any nudges. Now, this course typically has about 1,000 students. In 2017, 303 of these students used ABW-Space. And when we analyzed their behavior, slightly more than half of them were just watching videos passively, so they wrote no comments whatsoever. While we had almost 40% of active and only 10% of constructive students. Now, the following year, 2018, we divided the class into two groups. The control group had the basic version, so no nudges, while the experimental group had the reminder nudges, the simple nudges. And when we analyze the results, we see that there is a difference in the percentages of passive students, percentages of active and constructive students. So the nudges did have an effect on moving students from completely passive watching to active and constructive writing of comments. In 2019, again, we used only the reminder nudges and we have similar findings. Now in 2020, we added the quality nudges. And when we look at what happened that particular year, we see that the percentage of passive students further reduced. The percentage of active students reduced slightly, but we have a huge increase in the percentage of constructive students. 2021, this is when we had all the nudges and we also added visualizations, the dashboard and other visualizations that I mentioned. And you can see a further impact on students' engagement. So a very low number of passive students, higher number of active students, and quite a big increase in constructive students. And last year we had exactly the same experiment design, so no difference between 2021 and 2022. Again, similar percentages of passive students, active students, and constructive students. So we are very pleased with these results. So our interventions are working. We also tried to see whether the interventions are going to work in a different domain, and we developed this communication in face-to-face meetings domain. In this particular space, again, we have a number of tutorial videos. We have 6 tutorial videos which talk about important parts of how to communicate in face-to-face meeting. So we have videos on active listening, videos on how to give or receive feedback, how to participate in meeting, and how to communicate in general. Everything else is the same, so the students would be writing the comments in the same way. They can see their comments, they receive nudges, depending on their behavior, of course. We also have the aspects when they use when they write comments. Right, so 6 tutorial videos teaching them how to communicate, and then we had 4 examples of face-to-face meetings. Some of them were real meetings, some were acted meetings. And we performed 3 studies. This is in a different course. SENG 202 is a second-year software engineering course. In this course, students work in groups on a project for the whole semester. And every week they have face-to-face meetings when they talk about the piece of software they're developing. So this is the experimental design. At the start, we have survey 1, where we collect demographic data and conceptual knowledge. This time, there was only 1 question. We asked them to write anything that comes to mind about face-to-face communication in software development meetings. After the survey, they watched and commented on tutorial and example videos. Then in phase 2, they rated comments written by the class. And after that, we gave them survey 2, which had only that knowledge question. Now, in this set of studies, we have added phases 3, 4, and 5. And basically what we have decided to do is to record 1 meeting for each group. As I said earlier, they meet every week, so we recorded 1 of these meetings. We put it into AVW Space, and then we asked students to watch the meeting and comment on themselves, and finally to review comments written by other team members. And at the end, they have another survey with conceptual knowledge, usability questions, and cognitive load questions. So the overall summary of this particular skill, face-to-face communication. In the first study, which was done in 2020, we had no nudges, so just the basic AVW-Space platform. Now, this particular course is smaller. We typically have about 50 students per year. 47 students participated in 2020. 16 of them were passive students. There were 9 active and 22 constructive. In 2021 and 2022, we added nudges and visualization. Now, the effect of this was that there were no passive students anymore, so they were all writing comments. There was a very low number of active students, 3 in 2021 and just 1 in 2022. And everyone else, they were labeled as constructive students. So a huge effect on the distribution of those categories. Now, to confirm this effect, we also did causal modeling. We used Think Causal. You can see the URL for this particular tool developed at the New York University. It is free to use. And basically, you can do causal modeling using BART. BART is the acronym for Bayesian Additive Regression Trees algorithm. So using this particular causal modeling tool, we have found that these are the results for the presentation skill space. So if we compare 2017, where there were no nudges, so just the basic version of the system, and 2020 when we had nudges and visualizations, what we see is that there is an increase. Receiving nudges led to an increase of 0.39 in the knowledge score compared to what would have happened if students did not receive nudges. So there is definitely a causal effect of nudges on learning. We have also done that, the same kind of causal modeling for analyzing the total number of comments and the high quality comments, and found that receiving nudges led to an increase of 0.12 of low quality comments and an increase of 0.32 of high quality comments. We have done similar analysis in the other space for communication skills. So what we have done in this particular case is we compared the 2020 results when there were no nudges to the combination of 2021 and 2022, because the experimental setup was exactly the same. And we have found that receiving nudges led to an increase of 0.52 in the knowledge score. So again, nudges do have an effect on learning, a positive effect on learning. And also nudges have a positive impact on the total number of comments written, so an increase of 17.03 comments. And when we just look at the high quality comments, they result in an increase of 5.04 of high quality comments. Now let me just say a few words about the engagement with the team video. As I said earlier, for the face-to-face communication space, we also recorded one video of the group, and we also analyzed what happened with that particular video. So again, we have 2020 with no intervention in terms of nudges. 2021 and 2022 were the same, so we had nudges and visualizations. So when it comes to watching their own team video, students were very interested in that. Most of the class watched their own video. And when we looked at how many comments they have written, there was no difference in 2020 when there were no nudges and in the other 2 years. So obviously this task is something that is much more interesting for students. So they're more motivated to watch their own meeting rather than watching other people meeting. We have also analyzed the comments. So these are the examples of comments they have written on their own team meeting. Some of them are about the actual meeting, what went wrong or what went well. Someone has written, could have better followed an agenda. Meeting seems less purposeful. Then there were also comments where students reflected on their own behavior. For example, this comment which says, for myself, if I was to have a meeting with someone and they had the same body language as I did in this meeting, at least in the first 10 minutes, I would get an impression that they are not interested, disengaged, and not paying attention. So this is very reflective. This is exactly the type of comment we were hoping to get. And the last example, again, a reflective comment. I need to deliver my ideas clear. So obviously someone who was not happy with how they came across. In all the studies, we also ask students to give us feedback on the various activities they do on AVW Space. So this is some of the feedback we received on the team video. Students typically find this activity useful because, as the first comment says, they find it useful to see things, both good and bad, that happened in the meeting more clearly. The next example, you're able to see your meetings from an outside perspective, which enables you to see things that you might have missed. For example, team members that are not contributing or not paying attention. They liked commenting on the team video. So someone wrote, I could communicate to the team what I believe needed to be worked on and what we were doing well. And that's because these comments are anonymous. So it's easier for students to talk about things that need improvement. And also they said that understanding this kind of comments, watching the team video, making comments, help them understand other team members, their feelings, views, and opinions, and that leads to better communication and teamwork. We also asked about their perceptions of other features of AVW Space, and I have just given a couple of short comments. The first one is on the use of aspects when writing comments. And typically they react in a positive way. So this person says, it gets you to relate what's being discussed to yourself and provokes you to think harder about what aspects of communication are being discussed. And also for rating comments, there were most of the comments, like more than 95% of the comments were positive. This person wrote, it's useful as you can see other people's perspective on the video shown, which is exactly what we wanted. So we wanted the elements of social learning from each other. So that is a very short summary of our work since 2015. At the moment, we are doing more research. First of all, we are developing new spaces to see whether our intervention is going to work equally well in other spaces. We are also working on XAI, explainable AI. And this work includes providing explanations, for example, for the comment quality. In previous studies, some students have raised this issue because they were not clear on how the comment quality was derived. So basically explaining some of the decisions made by AVW Space, and we hope that this is going to increase students' trust in the system and also make them more motivated to learn with AVW Space. One of my PhD students is now working on extending AVW Space to support direct collaboration between students. In the current version, they cannot directly communicate, so they can watch videos, write comments, but there is no direct interaction. And that's the interactive mode of the ICAP framework. So that we want to do this to further increase the level of engagement. Now, another PhD student is working on developing instruments for assessing soft skills. From what I have talked about, you can see that our assessment is really just those knowledge questions. What do you know about presentation skills? What do you know about communication skills? And that's only one way of assessing soft skills. That's really a proxy for assessing their skills. So that's what we want to achieve, to have better instruments for assessing their skills. And finally, we have recently received a large grant from the New Zealand Ministry of Business, Employment and Innovation to explore the effect of our approach on software professionals. So to work with the software industry companies in New Zealand and see whether we can have an effect on how software is developed, because communication is crucial, especially for software development in teams. So this is what we are working on. I just want to acknowledge the funding that we have received from various agencies, and I would be happy to discuss any questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, welcome to this lecture. I'm Professor Philip Yu from the Department of Mathematics and Information Technologies of the Education University of Hong Kong. It is my great honor to be the chair of this panel discussion. I'm very happy to have Professor Mitrovic being here with us and talk to our panel members. So thank you, Professor Mitrovic. So let me briefly introduce our three panel members, and we have our colleagues, Professor Chip Lim. Hi, Chip Lim. He is the chair professor of the Learning Technologies and Innovation from the Department of Curriculum and Instructions, and also the Associate Dean in International Engagement of the Faculty of Education and Human Development. So he is interested in digital technologies for the enhancement of education equity, quality, and efficiency. And over the last 2 decades, he has engaged major education stakeholders like UNESCO and Asian Development Bank as his research and development partners. Our second panel member, Dr. Song Yin Jie, Associate Professor from the Department of Mathematics and Information Technologies. Her research interests including design, developments, and implementation of application of metaverse, of AR and VR technologies, and other AI and education technologies in education. She is also interested in pedagogy design and implementation with AI and EdTech. Our third panel members is Dr. Cecilia Chen, Associate Director from the Center for the Enhancement of Teaching and Learning from the University of Hong Kong. Cecilia. She is interested in the vast area of teaching and learning across multiple disciplines, including the development and assessment of holistic competence and experimental learning for higher education and school levels. So thank you so much, Professor Mitrovic, for giving us the excellent speech on the topics about the effects of LUTch on video-based learning. So there's so many things we can learn from self-regulated learning based on active video watching. I'm very interested in seeing the application of causal inference to study the LUTch effects on knowledge and comments. Today, Professor Mitrovic shared with us about the development of video-based learning, which might be one of the important learning from home solutions during the COVID-19 pandemics. I think all of us also have a hard time over the past few years, which each panel member share with us the best practices and any changes on your university policies to overcome the challenge. So shall I start with the discussion from Cecilia? Cecilia, please.
Thank you, for Professor Yu. Thank you for inviting me here. Well, in relation to the questions, right, I think the response of universities to the COVID-19 pandemic had indeed been absolutely remarkable. It showed an uncharacteristic of agility and speed in the sector that we've always been criticized by being slow, pace of change. So when the pandemic hit, institutions worldwide had to quickly pivot to safeguard the health of the students, the teachers, and the staff, while ensuring that we continue a quality education. Now, I think there was a number of things that we were proud of, right? And I don't mean just my university, but all the universities around the world. And but in terms of, let me just repeat some of these that you probably heard before, right? But obviously we have the rapid transition to remote learning, to hybrid learning. So when the pandemic unfolded, university were very, very fast transition to remote learning. I mean, often in a matter of days, right? That happened to our university. It was a massive undertaking, as you can imagine, because the complexity and providing access to many different diverse student bodies. And so we have to retrain our faculty, our staff in digital teaching practice, updating curricula for an online environment, for a totally online environment. As you know, most of the university in Hong Kong are not distant, are not online. We usually do face-to-face. So this kind of rapid acquisition and implementation of new technology was definitely a challenge, but I was proud that we succeed. In terms of there are other things like, development of health protocol to ensure that there's health and safety protocol in place for public health guidelines. Even those things was quite unbelievable because it was done so immediate. And I think for higher education, we have to applaud ourselves. There are other support system, and in terms of psychological support, emergency financial aid, technology support, all those were very fast. In fact, just this morning, before this particular meeting, I have a meeting with senior management and many staff about well-being of students and staff. And because of the COVID, there was many problem in terms of mental health, and we are now really looking into that because I think that kind of continues on as well. Now, our university, as you know, we have medical faculty and science faculty. So there was a research department globally working together to fight the COVID-19. And we were quite in there, step up in there as well. And so there was a lot of planning, a lot of re-evaluation in order to provide this particular quality of education for our students. And the speed, the scale of the response was, and have to underscore the resilience, the adaptability, in higher education. And that, I think, is quite remarkable, the dynamism. But out of all that, right, you ask me, what was the best practice that our university did? It was the opportunity to create real teamwork, not just in a local sense, not within just my center or within my faculty, but across disciplines, across support center, and across the world. Now, at the very beginning, I think it was around 2020, I ran one of the first cross-university seminar series, during the COVID, and with UCL, Melbourne, Macquarie, Harry Awards, like basically university around the world. We all have different time zone, but we have managed to attract over 1,500 people in most of our seminar series. And I think, that teamwork, that community, it really kind of shows us off that we can, really tackle that problem. Thank you.
Thanks, Cecilia, for the wonderful sharing. May I pass the time to Yinjie? Yinjie, please.
Thank you, Professor Yu. Cecilia has shared her view on how to cope with the challenges during COVID-19 from a university perspective. Well, I'll share my own experience. During COVID-19, like many other educators, I faced the challenge of transitioning from my courses to online delivery. As I began teaching master's students through Zoom, I noticed that a majority of them choose to keep their cameras off in class, with reasons ranging from technical difficulties to privacy concerns. This made me reflect on ways to enhance student engagement and social presence in the online learning environment. Inspired by the idea of creating a learning environment where students could use avatars, I decided to use this concept and applied for university funding. And I was grateful to our university for approval of my application, which allowed our research team to embark on the development of the metaverse platform, Learningverse. I implemented the platform in both a master's course and a professional development program and gathered feedback from the participants, I'm pleased to know that their responses were generally positive. Although ChatGPT has currently gained more attention than the metaverse, I remain optimistic that the metaverse has a capacity to transform virtual learning practices in the years to come. Thank you. That's my sharing.
Thank you, Yinjie. Now we pass the time to Chip. Chip, please.
All right. Thank you so much, Philip. Yeah, I think what Tanja have actually shared with us with respect to nudges, right? It has a lot to do with student learning engagement and student learning outcomes, right? So when we were actually at the stage of university closure due to the pandemic or the COVID-19 pandemic, we have actually shifted the so-called courses and lessons from on-site to online, right? Which of course pose some threat to the whole notion of how do we get how do we actually engage our students, right? And do not compromise learning itself, right? So that is that quality of learning part in terms of learning engagement and student learning outcomes. But I think there's also the part on education equity or learning equity, right? Where we are looking at the students' access to the learning. But it's not just access in terms of infrastructure or hardware, software, right? But it's also in terms of the support that students actually should be getting as they are working through the online lesson itself, right? Because when they are online, the so-called accountability and responsibility would have shifted quite a lot to the students in terms of them being able to monitor and manage their own learning itself, right? So back to the question of promising practices. I would say that in the Education University of Hong Kong, one of the promising practice would definitely be the professional development of our academic and teaching staff, right? So quite aligned to what Cecilia has shared with you about the practices in Hong Kong University or the University of Hong Kong, right? So when the university closure first came into place and when we moved online, I think quite a lot of the focus have been on how to use the technology, right? But the thing is, after 4 to 5 weeks, you could see quite a shift towards how do we really engage the students, right? So if it's going to be a 3-hour lesson, do we do 3 hours synchronously, right? Or do we start to mix the synchronous with the asynchronous? Which part of it would be asynchronous and which part of it would be synchronous, right? So a lot of the professional development, not just in terms of workshops, but in terms of peer support, in terms of professional learning community, in terms of one-to-one consultation with the support team, right? Actually start to look a lot into instructional design principles, right? About how to engage the students, how to provide them with the support, how to provide different groups of students with different types of support as they are working through online. So I would say that one of the promising practices that I would have shared would be about the professional development of our university teachers in the university. Thank you, and back to Philip.
Thank you, Chip. May I invite Professor Mitrovic to respond to our discussions? Professor, please.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with lots of stuff that was just discussed. The work that I presented actually started in 2015, long before the pandemic, and we were not even, at that time we couldn't even imagine that we would go through 3 years like the ones we had. But of course, it was useful to have this kind of platform. So our work was mostly focused on supporting engagement in asynchronous learning. all these other problems that happened with the pandemic, I remember them really well. So the March 2020, I was teaching a first year introductory programming course and also a postgraduate course. And for the first year course, I decided to make videos. And of course, then you don't have any kind of interaction with students. While for the postgraduate course, I was teaching on Zoom. And I remember really well the first session, and I just see 10 names, 10 blocks with names, no cameras. Yeah, so there are lots of different kinds of challenges in moving, especially moving so quickly from face-to-face to online learning. But I agree with Cecilia. I think we should all be very proud of what we have achieved. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mitrovic. I think we all agree that because of this pandemic, we are actually forced or pushed to make use of technologies in our teaching. And in fact, after that, actually, we are getting stronger more capable of using these technologies in our teaching and learning and design the teaching and learning activities for our students. I think at the end is we see some good move, and then people are actually more appreciate the use of e-learning platforms or these online virtual platforms. So let me go to the second question. So nowadays, AI is also a very hot topic. Some of you have mentioned ChatGPT. Actually, many teachers would like to incorporate AI in our education, particularly the powerful generative AI tools such as ChatGPT. The speakers today also share with us about the use of machine learning for quality assessment. So what is your view on the future developments of AI in education? Do you think it will be a threat or an opportunity to us? So shall we start with the discussion from Chip? Chip, please.
All right. Thank you so much, Philip. Yeah, I think with respect to the sub-question, right, threat or opportunity of generative AI, it's like in Chinese, right, threat is 危机 and opportunity is 机会, right? So it is actually quite interesting that when we are looking at an innovation entering the education sector, right? Of course, there would be threats. There would be threats to existing practices, right? There will be threats to what we are used to be doing, right? But it's actually an opportunity for change as well, and actually opportunity to create a more conducive type of learning environment for our students, right? And creating opportunities for our teachers to be able to scaffold our students' learning process. Right, so when we are looking at something like generative AI, right, I think the most common example would be ChatGPT. It's like the most, like, talk about term over the last 4 to 5 months, right? Think when we look at generative AI, there will be a need for us to reconceptualize the role of generative AI in the education sector. Right, conceptualizing it more towards being student-driven or the learner-driven. When we look at assisting thinking about AI, right, especially pre-ChatGPT, whenever we talk about personalized learning, right, it's always trying to empower the AI to personalize the learning of the students, especially in K-12 education, right? So a lot of focus is how do we make the AI more powerful, right? But the thing is, there is a need for us to rethink that and really think about how could we empower the students to actually make use of AI in such a way that they are monitoring and managing their own learning, right? Which is back to us, the university professors and teaching staff, right? Like, how do we actually design assessment tasks and subtasks? How do we create a learning path for our students as they are carrying out an inquiry, right? using generative AI to complete some of this assessment tasks? How do we scaffold the students? Like the term scaffolding is used quite a lot, I think, in Tanya's presentation, right? Which is really critical in ensuring that our students are able to complete the assessment task, right? So I would say that for the university professor and teachers, besides for AI literacy, there is definitely a need for assessment literacy as well, right? So that would probably be my perspective about really reconceptualizing generative AI in the education sector with respect to it being student driven. So back to you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chips. So I will pass the time to Cecilia. Could you share your views, please?
Yeah, over the past few months, there have been significant global discussion about generative AI, ChatGPT, and it's been disruptive, but at the same time, right, I think in higher education, there have been a lot of ongoing dialogues and debates among all different stakeholders, teachers, students, staff, and so forth. And I think as we think about the potential application of Gen AI technology, there are definitely a lot of promising. It's thrilling, right? But any new paradigm brings unique challenge, and we're all at the same boat. Now, in terms of the what do I think of it? Instead of just me, we actually conduct a survey with more than 500 students and around 200 teachers around Hong Kong to actually investigate their experience, their perception, knowledge, concern, intention, and so forth, right, about the use of generative AI. So our findings indicate that both students and teachers are very optimistic about adapting generative AI for teaching and learning. They are actually quite positive. And they do express concern. They realize they are concerned, and that in terms of potential unethical, dishonesty, privacy, and plagiarism, right? And of course, the risk of generative AI producing low quality, bias, and misleading material. All these, that we need to really consider about. And I also put a publication together, is that will AI replace or assist teachers in higher education? Now, I do think that, right, the future of education, there's a synergy between human and machine. Okay, so especially human teachers and AI. So we need to define what are the qualities that we can get from AI, and what are the unique quality that teachers can bring, in order to have a more well-rounded, impactful learning experience. Maybe, like, in my opinion, right, for AI in education, if we really want to adopt AI fully into education, I think we need to look into 3 areas. So the first one is AI literacy, okay? I think it's a literacy essential for everyone, not just student, not just teacher, but also for any average individual. There are some skills that they really need to know, because it's like mobile phone, right? Is it safe to download an app? Is it not safe? What does machine learning mean? What does, generative super intelligence mean, right? I mean, all these we need to kind of at least be aware of some of these terms and what do they do. And then there's specific skills required for a particular role, right? So for teachers, they need to realize, hey, there may be misconduct for the way we teach, right? Maybe we need to redesign curriculum and so forth. The second, right, is AI policy. Now, as a university or any education institution, we need to have policy towards certain thing, and AI policy is needed. But we need to balance, right, the promoting the innovation that AI can bring us, and at the same time ensure there's ethical practice, addressing these potential challenges. Now, the third one is a little bit different. It's plagiarism, but what I call AI-jurism, which you might have heard the term before. AI-jurism, I think it is crucial to rethink the definition of plagiarism in the context of AI-generated content, because we need to differentiate that, right, in terms of how we are using these, generative texts. And I think what is really important is that we shouldn't spend time speculating that are students plagiarizing or not, how are they using it, Okay. Instead, I think this is giving us another chance to rethink the way that how education should be taught. Okay. We need to rethink our pedagogy. Okay. Not just assessment. And we need to think of as a learning process. How do we, we always kind of consider, even at the COVID, and this is something that I actually wrote about it, right? A review of policy during COVID, especially on assessment. And we seem to kind of worry a lot more about the grading, the marking. But what we really should take the opportunity is actually, or took the opportunity, is to review, revise, rethink the whole education, the learning process. And I think this is something that AI can help us, right? We need to ensure there's a balance between adapting AI tools and how we do the critical skills, soft skills, communication skills, and so forth. And we need a mind shift between student and teachers. I think all of these are important for us. Thank you. Thank you, Philip.
Yeah, thank you, Cecilia, for the great sharing. So may I invite Professor Mitrovic to respond to our discussion, please?
Yes, I do agree with the panelists. Every innovation that humans come up with results in advantages and also disadvantages. So there are always pluses and negatives about every possible thing. So there was a question whether we are going to use ChatGPT in our particular platform, and the answer is no, because we have started from a very different place. However, when I address the issues with ChatGPT, I agree with Cecilia. As educators, we have to redesign our assessment because students now have very different opportunities. And yes, there is, the threat of plagiarism, but if we redesign our assessment in a way that will allow the students to use ChatGPT, but at the same time, ChatGPT or similar systems, because there are others, of course, but at the same time, we provide them support to develop their critical thinking skills. So maybe, for example, if they have to write an essay, they could start with a dialogue with ChatGPT, but then they have to use their own skills to see how this information that's provided by ChatGPT, first of all, is it true? Is it correct? What is the flow of information and all of that? Because as you know, ChatGPT is great for certain things, but very, very shallow in others. So it's just like another innovation. So we have to think of new ways of using it in a way that's going to be to our benefit and not to our, not causing new problems.
Thank you, thank you, Professor Mitrovic. So I think it is really a great time for us to see the fast speed of developments of these AI technologies. And I still remember, right, when we first have this COVID, and actually at that time I organized a conference, and then we have to cancel the conference. We actually have no this kind of technologies like Zoom to help us to have this kind of virtual conference. But later on, we realized that some new technology develops like Zoom, Teams. Now we are quite competent, right, to use these technologies in our teaching, organizing international virtual conference, online conference. So all these become doable. And of course, we understand that there's a kind of a new tools that we have to know how to use it, because AI is so powerful. You can use it in the best way so that you can benefit the student. But if you use it not in the best way, then it's just like a weapon, right? And so you can destroy the world. And so the point is, how do you set up the policy, as Cecilia mentioned, and how to assess the students to decide the learning tasks become very important. But one thing is, given that a lot of people, a lot of researchers over the world are working hard in making use of this AI technology to develop new tools. Are we actually quick enough to respond to them? Are we ready to redesign our policy, or whether we understand how useful, what are the challenges or kind of loopholes in using the tool? Sometimes you have to try it out, and then you realize that what kind of the application or what kind of a pedagogy you can implement, and that is also a challenge to us. But I think anyway, once you have the new things coming up, I think this is a good for our student, and also help us to reform our curriculum as well. So once again, thank you so much for Professor Mitrovic, and also all our panel members for your wonderful sharing. So for our audience, thank you for watching, and we hope to see you again in the next lecture in the DVP series. So bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the talk and the panel discussion, which I hope you found thought-provoking. I would like to thank Professor Mitrovic for providing this stimulating lecture. I also want to thank the panellists, Professor Yu, Professor Lim, Professor Chan, and Dr. Song, for their generous and insightful discussion. Today we've learnt about how video-based training provides a great opportunity to support learning in classrooms. The next lecture will be held in July. In it, we will welcome Professor Yusuf Wajid from Stellenbosch University in South Africa to talk about the decolonisation of education, implications for pedagogical citizenship. Stay tuned. We look forward to seeing you then. Thank you and goodbye.